Greetings, everyone. My name is Blessing Kumbu. I hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to the first episode of Beyond the BSc Horizon. It is my first time interviewing three people at the same time, so I'm a bit nervous, but they say the more the merrier, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay. I am from a small town in Northwest called Mafikeng, and I am currently in my final year, majoring in human anatomy and physiology and biochemistry. Today, we have three special guests with us to join us for this episode. So, in front of me, we have Dr. Ashwin Isaacs, who is a senior technical officer in the Department of Cell Biology. And then we have Tumi Mulale, who is currently doing her master's in forensic anthropology and victim identification. And we have Kirsten Sneakers, who's also doing her master's in forensic taphonomy. How are you guys today?
We're good, thank you.
Pretty good. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think maybe as an icebreaker before we get into it, maybe if you all can tell us what is your favorite hobby and why? Maybe we can start with the ladies.
That's always a trick question because now I've forgotten everything that I enjoy to do. I really enjoy hiking because it allows you to spend time in nature and with people that are close to you and gives you an excuse to get out of the lab in my case.
True.
True. For me, because I started rowing this year, so for me that was a very big part because it got me away from all of the academics. It was a really great stress reliever. It also helped me keep fit. But right now, what I'm really into is crocheting and knitting, and it's also really fun because at the end of the day, you're gonna have a finished project that
Yeah,
you can use. So it's really fun.
that's cool.
Yeah, so I have a few hobbies and interests. So I'm a cricket enthusiast. I play Sunday league cricket. I enjoy watching sports, rugby especially. During lockdown, I really got into like blockchain technology, like educating myself around that, tokenization and digital assets. And then I have a 4-year-old son, and I just enjoy playing catch or playing some footy with him. Yeah, spending time with him.
Cool hobbies, eh? You see, guys, science people are not just nerds. They do cool stuff. They do cool stuff. Okay. So if I can start with the postgrad students, if you can tell us like in high school, like what kind of a student were you, and then also why did you end up deciding to do like science in your undergrad?
You want to go first, Tim?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I was really just like quiet. I kept to myself. For me, just like getting my work done and going home was my main priority
Mm.
in high school, and I really enjoyed like life science and physics. So those were really my like strong points, including geography. But what happened was I had first gotten into like the life science and was really interested in the human body, and then I would sit over the weekends with my dad, and we would be watching crime and investigation and like IDX and all of that. And I would sit there and I was like, oh, but it's so cool. Like, how did they know that someone has been deceased for like 2 weeks? Like, how do they know that? Like, all of that stuff, like, really, really interested me. And then my dad started doing his research for me and was like, hey, forensics can be a route you want to go if you still want to enjoy like the human aspect of it, but also do the forensic aspect of it. So that's how I ended up here. And then I did my BSc in medical science, which touched a lot on forensics and forensic anthropology.
Nice. So you always had the spark from high school.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Kristen?
So mine's a bit of a tricky, long, sad story, I guess. I'm a recovering, trying to get into medicine student. Um,
I'm with you.
everyone goes
Yeah.
through that stage where they're convinced that they have to do that.
Mm.
Mine stems mainly from the fact that pretty much my entire family are doctors. So I grew up with a very strong base of anatomy and biology, and some of my favorite memories are actually kind of sounds a bit morbid if I think about it out loud, but having like a stew or something, and then I'd remove a bone, and then my dad would be like, oh, this is this bone, and this is where it is in the body of the cow or whatever we were eating in that stew. And during high school, I was forced to choose between biology and art, which was a little bit frustrating for me because I really enjoyed doing art. But biology was always my kind of drawing factor for anything. I enjoyed figuring out how things worked. I enjoyed understanding how things work as a whole and then as well as separately. So anatomy kind of encompasses all of that. Um, but it's okay because now I've connected art and biology and I do my anatomical drawings a lot. So it's fine. It's good.
Integration, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And then when you get to grade 11, grade 12, they're always like, you have to choose what you're going to do with your life, which I feel like is not a great way of going about telling a 17-year-old person that they need to choose for the rest of their life. So because I was in Pretoria, my parents were very set or would have liked me to stay in Pretoria. So I was looking at options for anatomy because I realized that I'm not such a fan of the medical people aspect of it. I was more interested in the anatomy, and that was a very, very tiny part of it. So I wanted to do anatomy, but at the University of Pretoria, they didn't have that as a separate option. So I started my undergrad journey there, where I did zoology, biology, um, I did a bunch of other things, physics, chemistry, and all that, but that's not important. And I then transferred from there to the University of Cape Town because they have the human anatomy and physiology undergrad, so that I could do the anatomy and anthropology honors and then continue from there, which is kind of where I am now. So,
Oh, cool. I think you mentioned an important fact in that as parents, I feel like they always put this pressure on us when you're in like matric, grade 11, be like, oh, you need to decide what you're gonna do. And then they always like, think realistic. You can't want to do music. You can't do art. No, mm-mm. Be a doctor, be a lawyer. So I think, I mean, as us Gen Zs, we need to change that. We must not be putting pressure on our children. Yeah. So maybe if I revolve it to you, Dr. Ashwin, let's reflect back, and it's a long time.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
long
been a while.
time. Um, what kind of a student were you in matric, and also like what then led to you choosing to do science in undergrad?
So, what kind of student? I was a, I'd say a well-balanced student. I believe in having balance in
Mhm.
life. Uh, well-balanced. I was always looking for work opportunities. And I was always looking for things to put on my CV to set me apart from my peers. Um, and I already knew that I had a interest in science on a primary school level.
Okay.
Um, it's most probably due to my teachers. And then in high school, I really enjoyed biology. So I knew that I wanted to do something within the field, but really didn't know what to do. And as you say, you get the pressure from the parents and all of that. And I just asked myself the question, Ash, what do you like? And the answer was sport, and that's why I got into BSc Sports Science degree.
Hmm, cool. And then maybe if I go back to you to me, then given that already from high school you knew like you were interested like in forensics and things leaning towards that direction. How was undergrad? I know like the transition from matric to undergrad and the idea we like they feed to us about what is university. It's different when you get here. Eh? So how was undergrad? Were there any struggles and like how did you then adjust? Like the culture shock? How did you find it all in undergrad?
Like the first year of undergrad was really interesting because I am someone who was quite like independent, like already at home, being like the eldest child. But like going into university and like having to like experience things and like figure things out on your own, and like also realizing that like everything that your high school teachers told you about what lecturers are was like completely false. Like most of them are like super chilled. They mind their business. If you show up, great. If you don't, oh wow. But because I was so close to home, and because because I'm from Joburg and I did it in Pretoria, I was still able to like go back home or like reach out to like family members nearby. Like if things got hard, like every weekend I was out of my room. I
That's
was not there
cool.
at all. And I think being in race, especially the first year, helps you out and gives you a lot of structure. You end up making like a lot of friends. You have people that really help you figure things out.
Okay. And then Kirsten, how did you find undergrad and like adjusting? Were there any
mm,
challenges? Yeah.
yeah. So It is always a bit tricky when people ask you that because you want to say, yeah, university is great,
Mm.
but it's not always great, specifically if you're in a science field. So I have a lot of friends who are in business and computer science and whatever else. And I distinctly remember sitting in first year with every single week we had like a lab report due, and that thing took the literal whole weekend. And then you'd have friends that come over and they're like, oh, do you want to go out? Or, oh, do you want to do something? And you're like,
Yeah.
sorry, I have lab reports due. And they're like, but why? Didn't you do it in the weekend? You're like, you don't understand. This thing
Mm.
takes so long. So it was always a bit of an interesting thing because you go into university with, like you said, this expectation of it being great. Even though
Mm.
during school everyone's like, "Oh, grade 11's the hardest year of your life," and then they're like, "Oh no, but grade 12 is it's the hardest year of your life." And then you go to university, and they're like, "Oh, it's going to be so much fun," and you get here and you're like, "This is so much harder than school." So
Yeah.
that was a bit interesting. I also experienced it quite rapidly, I think, because I didn't feel like I was doing what I wanted to do. So because I was a tux and I was doing not that I'm complaining, I did enjoy all of the things that I did and I had a genuine interest for all of them. It just didn't feel like it was taking me where I wanted to go. So I felt like I was going in circles. Um so the first year was a little bit interesting because I had to adjust my kind of goals of what I wanted to do. And then after I finished my second year at the University of Pretoria, that was when I transferred to UCT. And if you're transferring, just as a heads up to everyone, if you're planning to transfer to another university, specifically in undergrad, you need a minimum of 2 years at that university. So I had to redo second year because I needed 2 years to get a degree at the University of Cape Town. So that means that in the middle of COVID, I moved to a new place with no family, no friends, and had to redo second year, which felt again like a kick to the guts because
Mm.
I had to first off redo everything. So I had to sit there with chemistry and like maths and stats, and that was rough. I'm not gonna lie. Like the stats,
I feel like that is always something like, ish. Yeah, it made me question,
yeah,
like, is this
exactly.
something that's gonna matter me in this degree
Yes,
or what?
exactly.
Yeah.
So I had to redo all of that. So that was a bit of a frustration because I was like, okay, I already feel like I'm behind on my
Mm.
life plans or what I would have hoped to achieve in a certain time. And then I had to redo it. And then when I moved down here, it was interesting because similar to me, I'm also an older child, so I'm quite independent. I've always kind of been on my own mission. But don't move during COVID to a place where you have no family or friends and live in a one bedroom apartment thing with like a little kitchen and a bathroom because you have no excuse to go out. Like you
Mm.
have no extracurricular activities, you have nothing fun to do, and balance is really important. So I think undergrad was probably more traumatizing than it should have been.
Mm. 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 I mean, I think thank you for sharing like true because feel like most people when you ask them like how was undergrad, they always give you like this idea of like no, it's actually fun, like being
Mhm.
independent, and then you get here like am I the problem? Because what do you mean? So it's very interesting getting to see like how people like go through and like your experience is different from Tumi's, but at the same time like it's similar. It's all about being independent, trying to adjust, finding a balance in between the transition from matric into undergrad.
You also
So
have to be an adult. So take into consideration you're a student while also needing to buy groceries, while also needing to do laundry, while also needing to buy textbooks that are worth all of my
me,
organs.
I'm still a boy, guys. I identify as a boy. I identify as a boy, but true, true. Groceries can be pretty stressful. So maybe if I take it back to you, Kirsten, then given that already like you felt like you're going in circles because you're not doing what you wanted, then I just want to ask then like in your final year of undergrad, then how did you come about then choosing like what to pursue for postgrad?
Okay, so that one is a very easy answer. So when I was at Tux, the only reason why I wanted to do medicine was because I wanted to do anatomy. And I went to meet with a bunch of professors, and they were like, you have to do medicine to do anatomy. And I was like, okay, that seems a bit skewed.
Mm.
And then I started doing a bit more research, and I found the human anatomy and physiology at UCT. I'm a bit upset they don't do more anatomy now, but that's beside the point. During the course of that 2 years that I did my undergrad here, I did some more research. I'd always been interested in anatomy and forensics and just the general workings of how we go about dealing with death and life and everything that comes in between that.
Mm.
And I'd been in communication with Prof. Gibbon and with Prof. Friedling and a bunch of the guys on Med Campus, and they advised me to look at the honors programs, specifically looking at the anthropology and anatomy. Um, and the more research I did, the more excited I got about, okay, this is exactly what I wanted to do. Why did nobody in school tell us how many opportunities there actually are?
They
Like,
never
you
do,
go to
hey?
school and then you go to those presentations and they're like, you can be an accountant, a lawyer, you can do medicine,
Yeah.
you can, like, do business, and then they never talk to you about the little nitty-gritties of,
They
oh,
never.
you can be like a cell biologist, or oh, you
Mm-mm.
can be an anatomist, or you can like hyperfixate on a tiny little point that's actually really interesting to you, but nobody actually tells you what that
Yeah.
is. So I volunteered on Med Campus and I talked to everyone and I basically found the honors program. And everyone always says honors is the hardest year of your life, but that was the best year of my life. I had so much fun. It was so cool to learn the
You're actually
things.
the first one to say that.
I loved honors. It was fantastic. It was literally everything that I wanted to do,
Mm.
and I could study, and I could write, and I could like do the volunteering. And then the best part is, it's the last year you write exams. So like that was a win because you write that last one, and you're like, oh,
Finally.
amazing! Because academia in generally is not a great way of testing people's knowledge. So I had a lot
Mm.
of strong feelings about exams. They
Same.
don't test things that you know. So yeah, it's basically just, I think contacts are actually the best thing you can have. So if anybody has questions, just go on to like the UCT website, and if you have an
Mm.
interest in any field, go to that department, and there are literally a list of emails. Email them. Sometimes they're very nice. Sometimes it takes them a while to answer you, but that's because they have a really big backlog of
Mm.
emails. And then they'll be able to either point you in the right direction, give you other contacts, or advise you in the best course of action to actually follow what you're interested in, instead of trying to force yourself to do something that you're not
Mm.
interested in.
Mm. I think you mentioned a very important point in the sense that you should reach out to people and ask, like,
Definitely.
get more information. Because I always feel like, as a science student, especially like when you're in final year, there's this pressure of like you need to decide what you're doing next year, and the information is not out in the open. Like, you have to really be emailing people like, "Hi, what do you have there?" and stuff like that. So it can get a bit overwhelmed. But when you reach out to people, then it's pretty kind of.
Also, don't be scared. People are always scared of
Mm.
going to
Yeah.
people's offices, but their office
Mm.
numbers are there, and usually they're actually more open to talking to you face to
Mm.
face, because it's not answering emails or getting lost in a slew of other work emails that they
Mm.
need to do. So sometimes you can talk to someone. I've done that where I've shown up to people's offices and they're like, "Oh, are you a student here?" And you're like,
Mm.
"Not yet." But then they end up talking to you for like 2 hours about what they're interested in, how
Yeah.
they got there, where you can go from there. So it's actually a really good thing to show initiative and to actually go to an office, because you'll get clarity of mind by talking to people because they've done this before.
Mm.
Like they've gotten to that point, so they know how to do everything in that department.
And I also think like it makes them happy when they get students approaching them, because also
Absolutely.
they want people like to come into a department and they're always happy to share information.
Yeah. It shows that you're really interested in what they're doing. So, and it's just more, that social interaction.
Mm,
It's yeah, no, you already start building a relationship with that person. So I totally agree with you.
definitely. So if I take it back to you, to me,
Yeah.
because already for your side, you already knew like where you wanted to lean in terms of like going to forensics. So how was your transition like from undergrad and then deciding like to come here to UCT? And how did you come about choosing what to do in your postgrad?
Yeah, well, actually, my first honors was at the University of Pretoria,
Mm?
but I'm a little bit older than like everyone else. So I did my honors during COVID, and that was the worst experience of my life. That nearly broke me and made me feel as though, is what I'm doing right? Like, does any of this like make any sense? Because I think it was COVID, you know, the labs got shut down because I was doing a BSc in forensic anthropology, which is just another word for biological anthropology. It's now changed because of history and racism and stuff. So now it's biological anthropology. So I think, everybody was trying to figure out how to, do the classes and the practicals, and also like you're dealing with COVID. Lots of people lost a lot of loved
Mm.
ones, and now you're being asked to like submit certain things and tests and exams. So I think because of how stressful the entire situation was, and because we are still trying to finish the academic year, I think everyone was just like in like a lot of pressure. So people were very just like rude and just like disheartening. And I sat there like once I had finished, and bear in mind I just like scraped by, and I was sitting with my parents, and I was like, I can't go back to school next year. They were like, yeah, you wanted to do honors and everything, and I was like, I don't even think I want to go back to school at all. So for a year, I sat at home. I gave everything some thought. I was telling myself, is forensic still something I want to do? Is forensic anthropology still something that I want to do? Because now that I have a bad experience, if I'm going to continue with the field within this country, all of those people are people that I'm going to end up seeing often. So I was just like, can I do this? So then after that, like I sat with my parents and I told them, like, I still want to do forensic anthropology. I don't want to be working in a lab. I'm terrible with chemicals. In undergrad, my hands were stained for like weeks because I was just terrible with chemicals. So that's when they were like, Okay, so then what's your plan?" And I was like, because of how my marks look in honors, I want to do my honors again, just so that I can improve my marks. And then if I want to get into a master's, because especially in forensic anthropology, if you want to do anything in it, you need to have a master's.
Mm.
So that's when I started looking up like, different institutions, and then came across the UCT page for human biology. I looked through everything. I then spoke to Professor Jackie, and was just like, there's something I really want to do. I want to redo my honors, and figure things out. She was very open and nice about it. And literally, like, I told my like parents, this is something I really, really want to do. So then they were just like, okay, no, then I guess we're shipping you out to Cape Town.
Nice.
So that's what happened.
Mm.
So I came here, and like Kirsten said, it was actually really, really enjoyable because you were finally seeing how to apply the knowledge and the application of everything you've been learning all this time. So it made everything like really, really enjoyable. And that's when I was like, you know what, I can actually like keep this going. It's really a lot of fun, and I did really well in my honors as well. So it
Mm.
really was just about the environment and the circumstances.
That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. So everything worked out in the end.
Yeah.
Mm. Maybe if I shifted to you, Dr. Isaacs, how was honors for you?
Honors, uh, it was actually a very tough year for me. For me, it was actually the most difficult year. Um, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got to work with my mentor. I met him during honors. He's now professor at is Italian.
Okay.
So had a great honors year. Um, the transition into honors, I had a bit of a different transition. So I would say it was much easier
Okay.
from undergrad to honors. So during my undergrad, so I mentioned that I did sports science, and the ultimate idea was to do biokinetics. Obviously, I didn't do that. So during undergrad, I was awarded a scholarship to work in the Department of Physiological Sciences at Stellenbosch University, and I was awarded the scholarship to work as a research assistant in the skeletal muscle biology research group headed by Professor Kathy Myberg. And yeah, so I was in the department. I was working through all of the different labs, the molecular lab. I was in the exercise science lab, histology lab, tissue culture, and so on. And I got to know the postgraduate students. I got to know the staff members. So the transition was quite easy for me into honors.
Okay, and then from your perspective, since you've seen like students come into postgrad, how how would you rate like their transition? Do they find it easy? Do they find it hard to transition from undergrad to postgrad? Or like, what's your comment
Yeah, so,
on that?
so students are different. Um, And not everyone is dealt the same hand. So you might end up in a place that you actually don't want to be, but then some of them slug it out and so on. But most students, I find, are quite fine with their transition into honors. Yeah, I don't know if you what you think. And the depart. Wait, let me mention the Department of Human Biology. Everybody's really nice, so so let me put that out there. So yeah, honors. I don't find that many students struggle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely the department will make or break you. Like we had a great time because of the seniors that we had, but there were a lot of people who were in different programs than us also doing honors, who said they never want to see a university again because of the people that were there.
Yeah,
Support structure,
I've been
support
hearing
structure.
people
Yeah,
saying to
support
me
structures,
that
sure.
know your supervisor before you choose a project.
You have to talk to
Yeah,
the people.
definitely. I mean, the more information you have, the more confident you are in what you're going into. So definitely research the various supervisors, research the facilities and so on. Arm yourself with as much information as possible before you embark on anything.
Okay.
Talk to them. Your supervisors are the people that you're going to have to see every single week, and you have to meet with them, and you have to give them things, and they expect things of you, and you expect things of them. And if there's a lapse in communication, it makes it really, really hard to actually finish things on time. And I mean, for us, so Tumi and I actually did our honors together. So one of the reasons I think why it also was a little bit easier for us to adjust was our supervisors are great. They're fantastic people. They are really enthusiastic. They're very dedicated to their students. But our actual class group was quite close. So we kind of studied together, or we'd walk down and like get a coffee and then cry about histology and then carry on studying for histology and then like continue doing things and like having that general enthusiasm for what you're doing and being able to quote unquote suffer together
Yeah.
makes it so much easier. Like you need to remember that you're not alone. You're not doing this alone. You're not the only person that has done this. You're not the only person that is going to do this. You're not the only person that does struggle. Like everyone struggles, even the people that look like they're perfect and they're doing like the best, and you're just like, oh, I can't ever
The
be
grass
that
is always
person.
green on the other side, hey?
Yes, yes. So you need to. For me, it's very difficult to admit that you need help. Like I struggle with that a lot of the times, but sometimes you just kind of need to like bow your head and go and sit in a supervisor or a lecturer's office or go to one of your friends' rooms and just sit in the corner and cry and let them pat you on the head because like it really does get hard, but we're all human beings and we all have different emotions and you need to acknowledge them. Like my honors was great and I loved all of it. Doesn't mean that it wasn't hard in some sections. Like there will always be the ups and the downs, specifically in academia. Like everyone bases so much on like how you're doing, your marks, like are you good at this?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like specifically with honors when you have to start writing academic papers and work, English isn't my first language. So I felt so stupid because I was like, I cannot English, I cannot write, I cannot do any of this. What the hell am I doing with my life?
Academic writing is
Yeah, it is
traumatizing.
very much because you don't
Yeah.
get that like groundwork. So again, have a supervisor that assists you. Look at the like writing courses that they have. Talk to people because like imposter syndrome, it's a thing and it never goes away.
So peer learning is very important,
Very important.
especially during postgrad. So you need to also kind of network and make friends with those senior students, and because essentially you're going to be learning from them. Professors not necessarily in the lab. So yeah, network and make friends.
Okay. So then maybe while we're still on you, Dr. Ashwin, um, I gave a very brief introduction about you. So maybe if you can tell us more about like your position in the Department of Division of Cell Biology, and then also maybe as a follow-up, if you can tell us, according to you, to someone out there like who also wants to follow in your footsteps, what would you say makes a successful researcher in your field?
Mhm. Okay, so I'm Ashwin Isaacs. Um, I am currently employed as a Chief Technical Officer in the Division of Cell Biology within the Department of Human Biology, where I manage a histology laboratory. Um, I have good news that I received last week. I've been promoted to Principal Technical Officer, so that's quite exciting. So
Congratulations.
Nice.
thank you. Um, yeah, so just a bit about my background. So after uh, high school, uh, did the BSc degree at in sports science, was 4 years, and then I got awarded that scholarship, and then decided to not do biokinetics and continue with physiological sciences. Completed my honors, then completed my master's degree. I then applied for a position um, at Stellenbosch University and the position was for technical officer, managing a histology laboratory. I then, after getting the job, I then enrolled in a PhD, so I did that part time, and then joined UCT in November of 2018. The second question you had there was?
So, according to you,
Mhm.
what do you think makes a successful researcher in your field? Maybe to someone who wants to follow the same.
A successful
Hmm.
researcher um, must have balance. Very important. There's so many moving parts that you need to tend to. So balance is key. Um, Always look to pick up a lot of practical experiences and technical skills. And then also look to pick up a lot of soft skills because you're going to need that. I mean, communication,
Hmm.
professionalism, working within a team. Those things are important because there's politics you need to play as well in any, I guess, in any
Hmm.
environment. So I think those things are important, are very important.
Okay. So, maybe in closing, if I take it back to you two, so what would you say, like, is the common misunderstanding that people have about a BSc? And then, what advice would you give to like someone in final year like me who doesn't know what to do next year for postgrad? So what advice would you give like to aspiring postgraduate students?
I think for a lot of people, they just feel as though the BSc is really just like the biology and the stats and the physics and all of that, and that because it's all clumped up and you're doing a lot all at one time, that you'll sort of feel as though you are cornered and there are only certain type of opportunities that you will have, which is not the case. But it's sad that that's something that we only figured out in our postgrad, to be like, oh, there's so many like little niches that you can go into and make it your life's work. So I think while you're doing your BSc, it's really important to zero in on a specific like topic that you like, or even a specific body part that you're interested in, and see, if once I finish this, where can I take it, and what type of like postgraduate studies I would need. But the biggest advice is like balance, like everyone says, like touch grass, but like really like go touch grass, like go sit outside, even if it's just for like 30 minutes. I
Mm.
would say in a day, but honest to God, like maybe like a week, like go for a walk, like step away, like do other things, because you will lose your mind and it will come at the detriment of your academics and of your marks.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. So cool. You, Kirsten?
Mhm. Ouch, I'm sorry. I think one of the main misconceptions about biology is that it's just biology and that undergrad feels like a waste of time.
Mm.
So when you go into university, you expect to have general control of your courses. Like not in school where you have to do this and this and this and this. You go to university and then you have this expectation that you can do all the courses that you want. But then you look at that handbook and they're like, you can only do this course and you need to do this course and you have to do that course and this one is
Mm.
compulsory and this one is part of this degree, but you can't do it because it clashes with that one that you want to do. But it looks really fun. So it feels very frustrating where they think, like, a lot of people go in and they think BSc is just biology, and that it's like the waste of time.
Mm.
The waste of time comes in when you start studying and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't write another physics exam, I'm going to die. Or why is there so much stats?
Yeah.
Or like, why am I forced to do chemistry? I don't like chemistry. I want to do like biology, or I want to do anatomy, or I want to do something else. So the best advice I can give for that is, don't see it as a waste of time. See it as, I get to see all of the different avenues, and I'll know exactly which ones I don't like. So don't go down that road after your undergrad, and you can see exactly what you do like. So if you have a specific course that you're extremely interested in, look at who the main course conveners are. They might be supervisors. They might have an honors thing that they actually run as well. So the whole biology blanket umbrella statement is, it actually encompasses so much that even though you're forced to do a lot of things, all of those things, first off, will definitely help you, even if it's just to help you get perseverance and just general, like, finish this and get
Mhm.
going kind of vibe. It still teaches you something that you can use when you do go into postgrad. And then also, another piece of advice that I can give with people that don't know what they want to do after undergrad, but they know that they love biology, and everyone keeps saying, "Oh, you have to do a postgrad to get anywhere." That's extremely stressful, especially if you don't
Mm.
know which postgrad you want to do.
Mm.
Because every time you go to class, and now that it's getting closer to the end of the year and you're in final year, it's always like you sit down and they're like, "Do you know which honors you are applying for?" And you're just like,
From February, they've been saying that to us, and then in April, like in April, they were like, "I hope you guys applied." Like,
And you're like, for what? I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life.
yeah.
So for that, I feel like you don't, yes, you have to obviously plan ahead, but it is okay to take a year and get those hard and soft skills where you go and volunteer at a specific section, like in a different department that allows you to work in the labs or allows you to go to a different thing or work in the museums, for example, in on med campus, or like help any other people, because there's always nitty gritty things that the supervisors don't want to do because it takes time. But for your CV, it looks really, really good.
Mm.
So if you have to take a year to decide what you want to do, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Mm.
So if you come out of undergrad and you're not 100% sure, that's fine. What I actually ended up doing was, I couldn't decide if I wanted to do anthropology or if I wanted to do anatomy. So when you start applying for honors, you have your three options, and I applied for three, and I said, you know what? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I don't actually mind which one it is. So the one that I get accepted for is probably the sign. And then I went with that. So sometimes you have to kind of just not obsess about it, because it isn't the end of the world if you don't go straight into it. Like,
Mm.
I feel like I've lost some time when I had to redo second year and I had to move, and I'm like, I felt like I was going in circles. Now, if I look back, it wasn't actually a waste of time, because the
Mm.
fact that I had to redo second year was really annoying, but it was also the first year that I lived alone in a completely different place. So I didn't actually have that much time and energy to put into actually doing new courses. So that was actually a blessing in disguise. And like, coming here and deciding which honors to do, just applying and hoping for the best kind of thing. It's sometimes just okay to step back
Mm. Let
and,
it all work out. Let it all
yeah,
work
like,
out.
just
Mm.
step back and don't let all of the extra bombardment of, you have to decide now what you're gonna do, and like, I hope you've applied, I hope you've done this, and you're like, I first off, I've not been given any information, so I would like to first figure out what I want to
Mm.
do. And like, it is really fine to just breathe
Mm.
and figure out in your own time what that means. If it means that at the end of like your break year, or at the end of your break, you just decide to either not go back, that's fine as well. Um, but I don't think that the pressure of academia, or the pressure of needing to stay in academia, is worth your mental health. So if you realize academia is actually not for me, it is perfectly fine to step back and just say, you know what, I don't specifically want to do this, but I know that when I talk to my friends that are in actual corporate jobs, I would rather not. They talk and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
As a last question, there's always this worry amongst people that do a BSc in terms of like job security. So maybe if I pose it as a last question to like, according to you guys, like, where are you headed to? Like, you're doing your master's now. Are you looking into doing PhD? And also, like, in terms of like the specific fields that you are in, what are the career options for that?
So within the biological and forensic and anthropology, our main focus is is trying to help, identify people, especially if they've been like, disposed in different places, or they've been like skeletonized, or when it is, like humanitarian crises, and you have things like mass graves and all of that stuff, to make sure that people get identified. That's why like the research that like even Kirsten's doing with like taphonomy, and seeing how, so certain things like decompose with clothes, without clothes, and how that affects the body, is a really big thing. So one of my biggest goals is to work for like the Red Cross, and like the UN, and really help in those types of like humanitarian issues. So for a lot of people, like, you can go that route, or you can just stay in academia and do your PhD, and become like a lecturer, and just focus primarily on just like the research. But the one thing I'll tell people, irrespective of whichever route you want to go, is like, know your stats. Stats is one thing that you can't run away from, and it gets worse in postgrad,
Okay.
much worse. But if you're really someone who really cares about identifying people, figuring out methods to identify them, then this would be like the best course to be in.
Okay.
Yeah, so I enjoy the teaching. The main thing when you're coming out of undergrad going into a postgrad, your job options kind of filter into what you're doing in your honors and
Mm.
then what you'll do in your masters. So, I am definitely set on doing a PhD. I plan on doing a few postdocs as well, in similar but different fields. I love the pursuit of knowledge, learning new things, being able to use that knowledge in a practical sense. So again, working with like SAPs and OFP
Okay.
and during like investigations of deceased individuals, and um, there's also the teaching aspect as well as the continued research aspect. So with ours, we're obviously a bit more pinpoint
Yeah.
specific about which way we can go, but that's because we chose to go in that
Mm.
direction to be able to go into core anthropology, do anatomy and things like that. So depending on what your honors is, a lot of the times you figure out what you want to do and what you don't want to do, and then if you decide to do masters, your masters doesn't have to be the same as your honors.
Mm.
People always think if you do honors you're stuck with that for the rest of,
Mm. Mm.
you're not. Your honors can be completely different from your
Mm.
masters, can be different from your PhD, and your postdocs can have completely different topics. Like that's not all one little cone that sticks you in a corner and prevents you from doing anything. So I think when people think about BSc, they're always like, "Oh, but what are you going to do? Like, what are your job options? Like,
Definitely, yeah.
lab
Mm.
tech. You can, because of all the courses that you've done in undergrad, you can literally apply. Go to LinkedIn. LinkedIn has so many job options where they're like, you can be a lab tech. You can do this. You can do the like organization for this company, or oh, your skills actually match this. And then remember that you're not just looking at the knowledge that you've acquired during undergrad and postgrad, you're actually looking at the soft skills that you gain from that. So,
Definitely. Mm.
group work, the ability to do like intellectual thinking, thinking outside the box, those are all skills you can add to your LinkedIn profile, and that'll help you get those job opportunities where it's like, oh, your skills match this job. And you're like, that's not really what I studied, but I guess I can fit into that.
Definitely. I think, yeah, that's a very important point in the sense that a BSc is very broad and then like you get a lot of like transferable skills. So I think in that sense, then there's definitely lots of career options for you. I just feel like maybe it's the fact that there isn't much information about like what then after undergrad? That's why people sort of get scared and yeah, they don't know like
No,
what's gonna
it's
happen.
quite broad. I mean,
Mm,
research and development, academia, biotechnology and pharmaceutical, the pharmaceutical industry, bioinformatics and data
mm,
analysis, communication and education. Um, yeah, it's quite broad. And then obviously you can also um, cross discipline, so you can pair your science degree with something else.
mhm,
So for example, I've got a friend that paired it, he did a MSc, he did a MSc, and then a LLB postgrad because he was interested in patent law. So, for example, that's just an example of what you could do. I've an acquaintance who did a PhD in physiological sciences and an undergrad degree in philosophy and ended up in one of the big financial accounting institutions. It depends on the person and what you're keen on and interested in.
definitely. Thank you. That's the end of our episode. I hope that for people wanting to go into yeah victim identification, all those creepy yeah. I think now you have an idea of like how postgrad is gonna be. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.